In fact, another top voice on the show joining me is former US National Security Advisor, Ambassador John Bolton, to talk on what all is Trump doing when it comes to Harvard, national security, and the latest as far as the Trump playbook is concerned. Ambassador Bolton, thank you so much for speaking to me on NDTV. Let me start by asking you, drastic measures have been taken against Harvard due to national security concerns. How do you read these measures and their import?
Well, it's important to know, I think Harvard has brought suit this morning, America time, against its delisting as a place where foreign student visa holders can attend. This got started with an administration effort to deal with failure of universities to take steps against anti-Semitism on their campuses and the dangers that Jewish students and others were facing. But to say it's gotten out of control would be an understatement. I'm a Yale graduate myself, so I'm not a fan of Harvard. But they're now trying to affect the entire university, having started out with a legitimate basis of concern about anti-Semitism and the civil rights violations that entailed, to something much broader. I think it's ultimately very harmful, certainly to Harvard, but I think to the United States as well. We benefit in the United States from having foreign students. I mean, there's some that are obviously problems, but that doesn't mean that the vast bulk of them are, or that this kind of step is warranted.
This is a very important story because it impacts almost every country, because India itself sends about 800 international students to Harvard. So this has huge implications, but also it redefines the playbook, doesn't it? Because the Trump administration is saying, Ambassador Bolton, that there are concerns regarding Chinese presence on Harvard campuses, and which is the reason why they feel that they have to invoke those national security concerns.
Well, this is a good example of overreaching by the administration. I'm worried when our adversaries are able to take advantage of the U.S. educational system, and if there are specific countries that are a problem, then we ought to take steps to solve that problem. For example, for many years, Iran sent graduate students in mathematics and physics to American universities, potentially now contributors to the Iranian nuclear weapons program. So there's certainly reason here to screen people when they ask for visas for the United States. Every country does that. We're no exception.
Indeed.
But I've also found over the years, particularly students who come to the United States, we don't have a propaganda campaign when students come. They see the U.S., they see the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nonetheless, most are convinced that we have a system that bears evidence.
Right.
So I would be very upset about a program that essentially kept more students out, kept more foreign students out, which is the direction the administration seems to be going.
But the fact that there was the horrific killing of the two Israelis in Washington, D.C., they were embassy staffers, does that further the Trump government's argument about anti-Semitism being on the rise in America?
Well, I think it's a terrible tragedy, and particularly coming in Washington concerns everybody, the families especially. The person arrested, who basically confessed on the scene that he had done it, appears to be an American citizen from Chicago, an extreme leftist, from what people can tell from his social media postings. And it's evidence that, unfortunately, anti-Semitism occurs across the political spectrum. So it is a rising problem in the US and Europe and other places as well, and it will increase concerns.
Sir, which brings me to ask you that as the former NSA, how do you see that particular instance, that shooting instance, probably affecting Trump administration's view and approach regarding Israel as well as the Gaza conflict?
I think a lot will depend on whether the shooter was acting on his own, whether it was just ideological motivations. Did he have a network supporting him? Were there others involved? Were they foreign in some connection? But Americans generally are very sympathetic to Israel, very supportive of their efforts to escape terrorism. We were attacked on 9/11, as India has been attacked many times by terrorists. So I think this will move most Americans to say to more strongly support Israel.
All right, so we leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to me on India Sense. a story that we're going to keep revisiting simply because it impacts so many Indian students, Indian families here.